Hey everyone, I'm back with another look at Olympus lens. Um, Really excited about this one. I just recently picked up the 75mm 1.8. This 75mm is actually a really long portrait lens. It's equivalent to a 150mm. This lens has been getting a ton of great reviews for its sharpness. It's a huge piece of glass. If I open it up there, you can see it's a very wonderful lens. And I don't have a lot of lenses in the higher focal length, so I really felt like this would be a great addition to my current kit. So I thought I'd just give you some comparisons. This is very much in line with the 12mm that Olympus has already put in. The wide angle, it's still got the same look and build quality feel to it. It's much heavier than the 12mm, but it doesn't have the snapback focusing that the 12mm does. I really enjoy that feature of this lens. It's great for being out on the street to pre-focus. The focus ring on the 75 is much better than the focus ring on the 12. I just feel it's a bit more creamier. Another good comparison to this lens just in size and length is probably the Voigtlander. This is the 25mm 0.95 Voigtlander. They're very comparable in weight. I think the Voigtlander is actually heavier. But the focus rings on these, the Voigtlander by far is a much creamier feel than the 75mm. It's a very minimalist design. I've heard other people mention that as well, where you see there's no gauges, there's no scales on here. It's focused by wire, so you can just continually focus this ring. There's no manual aperture. There's no there's no snapback focusing like on the 12mm. It's essentially there's some plastic in this lens, but for the main part, it's mainly just metal. One thing I have noticed with it that some people may have mentioned in the past, and you may hear about a bit, is the noise that it makes. It does have a bit of a robotic sound when focusing. I find you don't notice it in good lighting because it focuses so quickly. But when you're in low lighting conditions, you definitely can hear a noise coming out of it, and it's a little distracting. I've read a bunch of blogs that mention that Olympus has said this is actually a normal phenomena of the lens. A lot of people have mentioned that the focal length is a little longer than they would have expected, especially since they're pushing this as a portrait lens. I primarily got it for street shooting, actually, where a lot of people on the street are looking at more wide-angle lenses like the 12mm or something like the 20mm Lumix. I actually really enjoy this for shooting on the streets. I went out yesterday. I've only had the lens for 2 days as well, but I went out yesterday and I had a blast. Getting a bit more distance from your subjects sometimes can be a little more creative, where you're a little harder to get the shot, but you can get shots without interfering in people's lives and they don't feel like they're being photographed. Especially when dealing with such a large optic like this, it can be a little more domineering. Where you see, if using something like the 20mm pancake, you don't worry your subjects nearly as much. Especially, one thing I notice is it is a heavy lens. It's lighter than the Voigtlander. The build qualities feel similar. Voigtlander still, I will say, is the best built quality lens for the Micro Four Thirds system out there on the marketplace. I've done another review of this. If you want to check out my channel, you'll see that review. This is by far the best built lens, but it doesn't have those nice features like autofocusing. So this lens is actually lighter than that one. Not quite the same build quality, not on par with that. It's very reminiscent of an old lens that's been updated. I felt the same thing when we got into the 12mm. I think the 12mm, being such a small lens in comparison, you can see it's almost half the size of the 75mm. It's got that old look and that feel, and it feels like a throwback. This one, you know, I can't complain about the price of it, because when you hold it and you look at the size of that front element, it just feels like a large, awesome lens. You know, you look through this glass and it just, oh, it's beautiful. There's nothing in your way there. You know, well, this is one of those lenses that you've got to be pretty committed to the 4/3 system to really get into a lens like this. And I'll show you, for instance, here's the EPL2. This was my first micro 4/3 camera. I have 3 of them now, and if I put this on, you can see that the size of this lens on the pen is a little ridiculous. I think if you're shooting a pen, and if you've really, you know, focused on the smaller cameras, this lens may not be what you're looking for. If you're looking for that long focal length, there might be better options out there, lighter options out there. If you are a more advanced enthusiast and you're invested into the system and you've been looking at some of the top end cameras, I would suggest this might be a suitable lens for you. For instance, I shoot with the OMD. If you have the battery grip on it, I find that this lens is very well suited for this camera. So I'll just show you here. This lens on this camera now, just with this extra grip, it feels much more comfortable and much more convenient to have this heavier, bigger lens on the front of this camera. It very much suits this style. I think you're probably looking at the GH3 as well, would be another camera where it's a bigger body, would probably suit this lens. I intend to use this more for street photography. You know, I really enjoy running with a 2 kit. Lately what I've been doing is taking my pen out with, just matched with the Lumix 20mm as my backup camera, throw this on my shoulder, and then have the 75mm on the OMD as my primary, and it's a good 2-camera combo. If you really look at that, you know, instead of getting into a zoom lens that has a large focal range in it, I find much easier just run and gun with 2 cameras. And you're talking like the EPL2, you probably can find for, you know, $500 right now, or even less, seeing as there's a bunch of new models, and this still takes really awesome pictures. Looking at things like photojournalism, and when you're really looking at getting a travel kit put together, you know, a full micro 4/3 kit seems to be the way to go, and being able to get some really beautiful glass like this 75, I think is, you know, definitely rounds out the kit very nicely. So far so good. I really enjoy shooting with this. There is some noise when it's focusing. The focus ring on it is very, very nice. Not quite where the Volglander is, but is one of the better ones. I find myself manual focusing or tweaking the focus a lot more with this focus ring. It's a large focus ring, which is great. Couple little quirks. I'm sure you see a lot of people complaining about the lens hood. Yes, Olympus still has not included these lens hoods in. I caved in with the 12mm and went and bought the Olympus one. I will likely do the same thing with the 75mm. I'd really like to get a good hood for it, but I do enjoy having metal lens hoods on the front of it to help with protection, as well as help cut down lens flare. I have taken a couple of shots with this lens too into direct sunlight. I'll post some of those as part of this review so you can take a peek at them. I've noticed it handling lens flare very, very well. I shot right into the sun, just muted by some tree branches, and you know, there was no noticeable flare whatsoever, which I was quite impressed with. Ideally it probably would have been a little shorter, but if you want something shorter, I hear very, very good things about the 45mm, and it's about half the price of this lens. So far I give this 2 thumbs up right now, and I'll post some video or some sample photos along with this review. Thank you.
looking back on the memory of the dance we shared beneath the stars above. For a moment, all the world was right. How could I have known that you'd ever say goodbye? And now I'm glad I didn't know the way it all